Please help me welcome author, speaker, and coach Anthony Trucks. Anthony, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? I like your name. Cornell's is a cool name. Feels
Ah,
special.
thank you. Thank you.
Feels expensive. It's a good expensive name.
I love it.
I'm just Anthony.
Sir, listen, I'm so glad you joined us to talk about identity shifts and share some of your story. We want to get into how we can help people shift, especially in this climate. But first, I want to give our listeners some background to your story. You were adopted at the age of 3 years old. Give us some insight into that journey.
Yeah, so I was adopted at 14, which is weird, but I was given away at 3, which is a weird kind of experience. So my mom had me and my 3 siblings, and then when I was 3, she's like, I don't want them anymore, and she gave us into the foster care system. So I endured a really difficult upbringing of like not knowing where I fit, where I belong, not being cared for. I was tortured, beaten, starved. It was weird stuff as a kid. And then I landed in a home, which is my home now at the age of 6, but I'm the only Black person in an all-white family. And so for 8 years, I was in that family. And at 14, I finally got adopted. So my entire childhood is riddled with not knowing at this place I woke up, I get to go to bed tonight because I wasn't adopted, not knowing really any of my culture, who I am, where I fit. At school, I was the only kid that looked like me at school. So it was a whole lot of different dynamics. And so a lot of my childhood growing up was that space where people get of, I don't know who I am and where I fit. I'm not appreciated for who I am. And so that's kind of where it all started. And it blossomed into a whole lot of statistic beating experiences in life, whether it was, just getting through high school, not ending up in jail. 75% of prison inmates in any prison in America are former foster kids. Half the homeless population, less than 1% of us graduate college. So I beat a lot of odds, man. Got a college football scholarship, graduated, had a kid at 20, met my dad at 20, got a chance to play in the NFL. My 3rd year, tore my shoulder, came home and ups and downs and divorced, married, had 3 kids, divorced, remarried my ex-wife after 3 years, have an amazing marriage now. And so my life is a bunch of awe shift moments, I call it, like, holy crap, what do we do right now? How do I make the most of it? And over life, I found a way to make the most of it.
Yeah. You ran past some of that, but we're going to come back into that because those are elements of your story that I think really aid into the work that you do right now. But you talk about, because I read some of your story, you talk about feeling a sense of unworthiness in that period of, I guess, between foster care and maybe after adoption. I'm not sure. Talk about that unworthiness and how that showed up in your identity.
Oh yeah, I had that until my early 30s. I couldn't receive a thank you until my early 30s. I wasn't good at it. I didn't know how to have anybody say good job. Because when all your proof is that your mom doesn't want you, these families don't treat you well, like all you really have is this, like, I'm not the greatest guy. And so even in the NFL, there's times when I didn't believe I belonged in the NFL. Sounds odd, but there's like times when I wanted to quit. I'm like, I don't even like this. And I would go out there like, am I supposed to be out here? Like, this team is paying me. They've picked me out of all the people they could have, but I still didn't see it as something where I belonged. And so, yeah, it seeps in and it rolls for a long time. And I think because of those emotions, if I don't make that shift inside, we can kind of create stuff, but it's hard to receive it, right? And if I do receive it, it's hard to sustain it if I don't feel like it's who I am to have it. And so that unworthiness was this a latched on emotion that it was killing my world, even though I was fighting against it to kind of create something cool or make shift happen, what I talk about.
Wow. So you get to the point where you're adopted by this all-white family. You had, I guess, been in the foster care for that period and having trouble identifying with who you were culturally, personally. What was it like when you walked into this home with all of these people that looked nothing like you? What was your thought?
Well, the funny thing is back then, there wasn't any thought. It was just like, this is the house I'm at. Because when you're in the foster care system, you start to disassociate emotionally. Unfortunately, you really do. Like you start thinking like, this is just a house I'm going to be in. Seriously, I was putting shopping carts pushed down hills. I was putting chicken coops and forced to chase chickens to catch one to earn a meal. I was forced to lick the bottom of people's shoes. Like, this is all before 6 years old. So when you get in this situation at 6 years old, I'm put into this household. I don't know if it's good, if it's bad. I don't know who these people are. Half of me doesn't care. I feel like you don't feel like a human. You're just this punching bag. And so I did not have an awareness of my difference from we'll call it a racial standpoint. I just had a difference of like acceptance of humanity, even beyond that. And then it started getting worse, because then you get older and you start going to middle school, elementary school and 1st and 2nd grade. And I have all my Black moments, little kids on the playground calling me names and me beating them up and just back and forth. And so Then you start getting more and more aware. And then you go home and it's like, well, who do I talk to about this? You know, while I had an amazing adoptive mom and she was great at having these heartfelt conversations, there was a separation from her true understanding of it. She would love me beyond levels that made sense. So it was the solution I needed, but it took me years to really get a grasp of what the world and what was going on. And so, yeah, there was a definitive, like there was 8 of us in the family. You go to a restaurant, it's like, hey, table for 7. You know, oh no, little black kids with us too, his little nappy hair. You're like, that's ours. And so it's just, it's this weirdness. So yeah, there are multiple levels of not feeling like I was part of it.
I have to ask, because many would probably wonder, how has that upbringing affected you in times like these when you see Black Lives Matter and all of this rah-rah around racism? How has that upbringing conditioned you and shaped your thoughts toward the matter?
Differently. I wouldn't say better. I wouldn't say worse. I would just say differently. You know, so because I have an intimate understanding of the white household, like I grew up in it, you know, I know from one of the white households of millions, right? There's a perspective of like, when everything went on, white America wasn't allowed to speak up. They're like, you know, everybody's been, condemning what's been going on. And those who are allies, they couldn't speak. Can't say a word. My best friend in the world right now, just, is a short, bald, tiny hand, white police officer. That's my best friend in the world since like 3rd grade, bro. I love the guy. We have some deep conversations. We do not always agree. Like we have one point I'm like, I don't know if I could be your friend, bro. What are you talking about? Like it's just, this happens. But the reality is in these moments, I can go back to my upbringing and see things and go, my mom, she was very aware of like, okay, that person isn't the best person, not those people. Difference, right? And so I didn't have this perspective that, back a better term, whitewashed everybody and said, you're all horrible, so I could see with different eyes. And so, but I also get the plight. I've been pulled over, DWB many times. I've been at airports and a guy called me Afro penis with a different word, right? Weird things. And this is like 5-6 years ago. I was like, this exists. It happens, man. I've been run off the road and called, crazy names. And so the idea is, when I look at my childhood, there was a difference in the people that were raising me didn't have, I guess they didn't have this broad stroke spectrum of they're all bad people. And so I think because of that, I didn't grow up with this perspective of feeling separate or feeling like they were all bad. So I got to see some of the good. I got to see a lot of the good, And so when our world happens this manner, I have a plight on both sides. I go, man, I have uncles, aunts, cousins, siblings that are like, they genuinely care, but they can't speak up. And I feel that, right? And the Black side, I get the perspective of like, but you don't fully get it. Like when I go places and I walk, and this is something you'll get. I am a very proud human. I walk around, and when I walk around as a man, I don't know what it is, but I like to look people in their eyes. I walk. Now, a lot of people, as Black people, don't realize that's not what you normally do. You usually walk, when you catch eyes, you look away or you look down. It's just, it was back Emmett Till days. That's how he got, a little crazy. It's like looking in people's eyes. His family said, don't go and look anybody in the eyes. For me, I do that. And I noticed that white people will catch my eyes and follow much longer because they're trying to figure it out. Why is this guy looking at him, And so I operate in the world differently. It's not abrasive. It's not aggressive. It's just, I'm not a very passive human in that manner. And so a lot of these little nuances and things are things that I learned growing up that I can do. I be different. And so it's not this overarching, like they're all bad. Like, it's just like, no, I see things. I feel the plight of both sides. And so when I have discussions, my family doesn't know what it's like to walk around and realize everybody's staring at you in an environment where, like, my daughter swims. We were at a swim meet in Arizona for 3 days. There's, I think in the entire pool of hundreds, might have been 4 Black people, maybe 5, right? The entire pool of hundreds. So when you're walking proud, they're like, what is with this? Either you're an athlete, movie star, I don't know. But like, they talk to him like, I'm just a dude, man. Like, but I walk with a pride. And so that's something that it's not always seen. Like, that is, people don't realize that's consistent, like, pressure and compression on a human and all that look like them in a world where, like, it's not seen. So I get both sides. Like, I get the white perspective that wants to help. I get the Black perspective going, you're never going to get that. You don't understand what it's like to have that weight on your heart from day one and just walk with it and get normalized to it. So when it all spins up, I do realize this. I put in a weird metaphor of, like, there's a home we all want to live in where everybody's accepted, right? The home would be our culture, our world, right? If we, have these houses, like, white America is not going to come live in my house. They don't like the smells and the spices, right? Because Black people have different food, right? Just joking, but I'm not. And then And then, Black America is not going to go live in the white people's house because, like Dave Chappelle says, I just knew white people food not to be delicious. Like, it's just, I'm being facetious, but it's just there's different houses, right? Different things they do. But if we all think about it, we do want to live in peace. We don't have this. I don't want to have to live in my neighborhood and be scared of your neighborhood and vice versa. So the idea is, well, we got to come together and we got to build a house together. But in building that house, there is different work to be done by each side. For some, it's tearing down. For some, it's building up. There's different perspectives. We both have to do work. And we can't lean and go, they got to fix it. And they got to fix it. Right. You can't do that. Because even if we do build the house, if I built the house and you move in and I know you didn't put sweat into it, I'm pissed at you the whole time you're there. Why? You didn't go out there. You weren't in there sweat with me and laying bricks with me and painting it. You weren't doing all that. Right. But if I know when I was putting the sheetrock up, you were out in the back, tilting up the ground, doing the yard, and someone's doing the piping, right? Then we can all sit down and go, respect. You belong here with me. And that's what I believe we're all shooting for.
So good. So well said too. You get to this point where you're now in high school, and in reading your story, it sounds like you've gotten a grip on your identity a little bit more and what you need to do. You talk about understanding your patterns. I guess the pattern of success, where you set a goal and you hit a brick wall and you start again and then you overcome it. And that's what got you to become varsity in high school. Talk about that pattern and being able to identify, I guess, your success pattern. Do we all have different success patterns when it comes to achieving goals?
Yeah, we have. So identity is this concept that is really the core of us. If you think about it, your identity is who you are when you're not thinking about who you are. It's just your flow, man. It's just how we see things, do things, optimistic, pessimistic, hardworking, not hardworking. There's things that I switch off into and I go into them and just go. It's who I am. Like, I'm a guy that if I touch it, it's got to be amazing. I'm going to work really hard. My son doesn't have that yet. It's not who he is to do that. He'll go out there and throw some things together and like, I picked the poop in the backyard, and I'll go out there and find poop. And I'm like, dude, it's not great. What does it matter? You did it. It's a different sense, right? And so, but that's just my natural sense. Now, when I look at that and I go, okay, what is that from a standpoint of actionable, real life, tangible? I call what's called a capacity loop. We all have capacity. Our identity is actually tied to our human capacity, right? It just is. To love, to focus, to work hard, to build, to create, to let go, whatever it is. It's just a capacity we have to do these things. And when I look at my childhood, when I was this football player, I at one point was not good at all, right? I was a horrible football player. I didn't have the capacity to put the work in mentally, physically, take the feedback, take the hardship, do the work, succeed. Sometimes people don't have the capacity to receive success. Like, I couldn't take a thank you. You can do real well and go, yeah, but I don't know if I could do it again. And the difference there. So what I realize is you have to actually put effort in to increase that capacity. And so when I look back and you talk about being that person, or we call it identity, what I noticed was like I had to ask different questions. When I asked the question of what do I got to do to be great, right? Well, I'm looking at Anthony still, and I'm only going to do things inside what I perceive I can do, right? If I want to, so I'm going to be great. We want to be great. I want to be a great actor, right? Okay, what can I do? Well, I can't do that. I can't sing. I can't talk like that. Maybe I don't know how to act like happy, and I can't do that. But then a moment arises, and I lean to that, and I go, I can't do that. It's not who I am. So I ask the question differently, and this is where it becomes this separate identity. I go, well, what would the person who has what I want most in life do in this moment? And the difference there is, if I put somebody out, let's say I'm looking at Denzel Washington, right? If I ask the question, what do I have to do to be great? I'll think at a certain level. If I say, what would Denzel Washington do right now? I go, oh, I know what he'd do. Oh, it's going to be hard. Okay, let me try it. I have a different endpoint. And so when I look at football, I said, well, what does Jerry Rice do? I was in the Bay Area. What does Jerry Rice do at that time to be a receiver? And you watch him, he's out there running hills in his short shorts, and he's catching footballs and doing his thing. I said, dang, I guess I'm gonna do that, right? And I was trying to do the things the individual does that isn't a place I want to be. And at first, here's the most important thing. It's going to feel out of character. It always does. It feels like it doesn't feel like who I am. And so I will naturally pull away. I'll evade that stuff because it doesn't feel comfortable, which is, it's supposed to feel that way. But the reality is, if I don't ask the question, and I don't look at the out of character actions, I don't do them, I don't get that thing. I can't receive it, nor can I sustain it if I do receive it. And so when I was a kid, I was looking at what does that football player do? And they lifted weights, they ran routes, and I go, that's not who I am. but I would still try it. I'd have teammates. Hey, Trucks, man, you're slow. Why are you running routes? Like, you got no hands. Why are you catching footballs? But you're weak. Why are you lifting weights? You're not a weight room guy. It was out of character. And people noticed it and pointed it out to me, right? But you keep doing it. And what's beautiful about the things you do is habitually, like you talked about habits for success, you are what you consistently do. If you do this thing over time and it's not who you are, it's you're developing the habit, but you're still taking the actions. And eventually you get this investment bias because you've done it so long that no one can take it from you. I'm a father. I got a 17-year-old son, 12-year-old twins. And I've been doing this for 17 years now. I put time in. I invested, right? So don't you dare tell me I don't know how to be a dad. Like there's this different investment bias of I know what I am. Now, before I had my kids, couldn't say I was a father. I wasn't invested there. Like, I'm not a dad. It's not what I do. There's different. As a speaker, I speak now. In the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I can speak, but I did it for so long, out of character, shared stories I wasn't used to, talked like this. Now I'm like, no, I'm one of the best in the world at what I do. It's a different level, right? So the idea is you have to put that out of character action in over time, create the habit. The more the habit takes place, the less it's a habit, the more it just is how you identify as a human. So it gets done, you get the return.
So good, so good. Download that concept when you're talking about approaching this football career in high school and not being good, knowing you weren't good. Download that in the concept of potential, because we often hear, oh, he has potential, or she has potential. And a lot of times we use that loosely to make excuse for somebody. You know what I mean? Maybe a girlfriend who's making an excuse for a guy that she says has potential because she sees the good in him. What is potential, and how and why is it important to this success journey?
Yeah, well, high potential isn't high performance, right? So just because you have it doesn't mean you're going to do anything with it. And then there's also a space where people will see potential in you that you don't see in you. And you get to a dangerous space there. And here's the dangerous space. It is not safe for relationship for you to want more for someone than they want for themselves. Because if you do that and you make it prominent and known and speak it out loud, well, then they start realizing this person doesn't respect me or appreciate me as I am. And so it's tough because like I have kids who like I see so much potential and I want them to do great things, but if they don't want it, it's forcing them to do stuff. So we have ample conversations. What do you want? What do you want to do? What do you want to create? Where do you want to go? Right. And then our job is to step in and go, okay, if what you want, you're saying you want that, here is what it's going to take. So now what I'm doing is I'm helping them get to that level of stepping into a higher space to fulfill what their desired potential is. Big key, their desired potential. And so when I see that, and when we see that, we have to nurture them to the level they see fit. And the cool thing is when you do that, most people, they can't see beyond this immediate goal. But when they get there, they see it and go, oh, because as humans, we have a tendency to look past what we have. We just naturally do. It's why they have gratitude as a big thing. We have some, we look past it. Be grateful. Okay, let me look at it again, So naturally, if you have someone that wants to get some level where you see a place they can go, find out where they want to go in the path. Help them see it, perceive it, make it their thing. They'll fight for it. They'll get there. New conversation comes up to go farther. And because you help them get to the first stage, they're used to having you around. You can help them progress forward more. And so when you see someone potential, you have to figure out first, what is their desired place to go that works in a direction towards that? Or at least, here's the other part of it. Maybe you plant a seed, but you don't water it. Like there's certain things that there's people in my life I'm too close to. I do this for a living. People pay me to come talk, right? There's people in my life that don't want to hear me talk. They don't care, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're just too close. Doesn't mean they don't respect you. It's just you're too close. And so while I may be a great person to, hey, Cornell, man, we really got to work on, your ability to market what you do and do some things. But, I think when you do, it's going to be amazing. That's one way of doing it. And you go, I'm thinking about that. Like, I'd love to introduce some people that I like. Hey, take a look at this book here. And this is a guy you should follow. I introduce you to somebody else to water the seed, as opposed to Cornell, you got to market. Let's sit down. I mean, you're going to sit down, have some time. We're going to market. I'm going to get this also. You got to do right how I say it, the way I got to say it. But you're like, bro, we were just at a bachelor party last weekend, man. I'm not trying to do that with you. Like, it's too weird, And so the idea is that sometimes you just plant the seed, let somebody else water it, and then celebrate their success as they have it.
So good. So good. Back to your journey. You are varsity, and now you got the scholarship. You go to college, and you get through college. And now you are an NFL pro footballer. But then life happens again, or shift happens again.
Shift happens.
Talk to us about that transition and seeing your dream almost crumble in your hands?
Yeah, I mean, it did. Not that it kind of did. It 100%. When I left the NFL, like the dream's gone, you know, and so you get to that level of playing professional sports, and it's all you are. I tell people it's kind of like it's the fruit of your labor, and you are the fruit. You're the apple. You know, whether it's, you know, you've played football, you've been in the military, you built a podcast, you're in a marriage, you have, you know, a business you built, a career, whatever it is. And at some point when you're doing that thing, whether by choice or by chance, at some point it stops. Unfortunately, right? It's I chose to sell the business. Now what do? I got money, but what do I do with my day, right? Or kids go off to college, empty nest. Well, now I'm not toting them around. I'm not going to their things with them for sports. Like, what do I do with myself? Or, you know, football, I left a game, you know, or you leave the military. These different things happen. And we all think it's relegated to athletes. It's not. All humanity has moments where they wake up and they can't do it. And in that moment, we go, who am I then? If I can't do that, well, who am I? And we see it as like the fruit falls off the tree. And reality, like for me, when I played football, I was my fruit of my labor. I was a football player. It fell off the tree, and like any piece of fruit, it can last a little bit. You know, it can hang on the ground. Farmer can pick it up, take it to the store. I mean, you can buy it, take it home, and eat it, and it'll last. But if it doesn't get eaten, right, which in this case it doesn't, it eventually rots. It becomes this decrepit little thing, and we feel rotten inside. I'm nobody without football. I'm nobody without the military. I'm nobody without my kids. I'm nobody without the career or that business. Well, what do I do, right? And because of that, we have this interesting thing happen. For me, my whole world fell apart when I lost football eventually, because that football fruit rotted. And here's why. We have all assumed that we are the fruit, when the reality is we've never been the fruit. We've always been the tree. The tree created the fruit. And when you lose sight of the tree because you're focused on one piece of fruit, the rest of it dies. So my marriage fell apart. I was out of shape. I was a bad parent. Everything went tumbling down because, well, I wasn't watering the tree anymore. I wasn't pruning the branches. I wasn't giving any sunlight. I wasn't nothing. So yeah, this one fruit took my focus off of the tree, and everything in the tree died. And so you have to realize that when you go look at your world and who you are, we got to take care of the tree, because when you do, you create sweeter and vastly more abundant fruit.
Mm-hmm. Shortly after that time, and I love this part of your story, you had a conversation with someone that, in my opinion, set your purpose on fire. Tell us about that conversation. A gentleman, I guess, you
Richie.
found out that you were an inspiration to him, even in that trying period. Talk about that.
Yeah, man. Well, life has that happen, doesn't it? You find things out you didn't know. So yeah, I was in a dark time. I'd come, this level of like, I don't want to be here. And then this guy, takes me to my office. One of the guys that worked for me was a high school teammate of mine, eventually worked for me later on at my gym. And he goes, first off, never do nothing stupid like that again. He said, second, he says, when I found out what happened, like I threw up. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I felt like I'd lost a hero. And so for me, it was like this thing, and it wasn't because of what I did, but he didn't know if I was safe at the time. And so what ended up happening was he's like, you don't realize it, but a lot of people in this community, we know what you've gone through, how you've lived your life. No one's expressed it to you, but dude, like we all look up to you. You've done you've inspired a lot of people by just doing what you're doing. And in that moment, I had this interesting thought of like, man, that was just an accident. I wasn't trying to make anybody's life better, and I had a seed, we'll call it. And the seed was, well, man, if I did it on accident, what if I did it on purpose? But that was not a time for me to do anything on purpose. I was such a dark place. Life wasn't good, but it was just a seed that maybe there's a reason for all the crazy. Maybe there's a reason these things transpired. And so for me, that was like, okay, maybe there's a reason. And so I started over the next few years, just kind of living life, but had that in the back of my mind and my brain. And then came to a head when my adoptive mom passed away. I was like, I got to find something to do, like something that allows me to make my life better. And also once it's better, do what she did for me, in unconditional love in the world in some manner. And that's when the seed started getting watered and grew into what I do today.
Wow. Well, you're now America's #1 transformational identity coach. Talk to us about that work. What does that mean for Anthony Trucks, being an identity
The interesting
coach?
thing is nobody else really works in it. And it's odd that it's gotten this far into the world and no one's looked at it. And I think for me, it was accidental, to be honest. Like I was just doing my thing and somebody brought it to my attention. He's like, how have you navigated all these shifts of your identity to get where you're at? Because the most successful people in the world, they realize you can't sustain something you are not. Right. So like even on social media, it's hard to be the fake person online all day. It'll drain your soul. You got to be you. It's less energy and there's more distance. There's more returns. So the idea is like, well, Successful people are the people who do the things you see, where you look at it and go, man, how do they do that in a single day? Or how do they say that? How do they do that? For them, it's so much who they are. They go, how do you not? It's hard for you to do, but it's hard for them not to do. And so while identity in of itself is this deeper concept, and no one woke up ever in the world and went, hey, I want to make an identity shift today. Not a soul. No one's woke up in the history of humanity and said, I want to make an identity shift. But we have said, I want more money, I want more time, I want more peace, I want more joy, I want more impact, I want more notoriety. I want these things. And the problem is, because a certain person has them, we don't identify as that, we will inherently stop ourselves. We won't take the out of character actions to get what that character has. And that's why I believe that if your identity doesn't match the dream, you don't get to receive or sustain that dream, period. So you have to get to a point where you become the person who almost effortlessly does the things that brings that into you, brings it a money, brings it a time, brings it a joy. And on top of that, if you do get it, not feel guilty for having it where you don't deserve it and then squander it. It's a lot of people that sometimes get a lot of money and they squander it because for them, when they see the zeros, they go, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not the kind of person that handles this. And they just will inherently, instinctually spend it all, right? Or the person who gets a relationship and goes, this person's too good for me. Oh, I don't know what to do with it. Let me cheat on them, and they do that. And it's this weird dynamic, and it's not a information issue. It's not an execution. It's just not who they are. So they can't receive it. And if they do, they go through it. So when I look at the work I do, I'm trying to do two things. I'm trying to get you to a point of seeing the things that you got to work on, right? The things that are not within your current character or identity that we need to lead into. And then I got to figure out also, what are the out of character actions that will extend you, expand you into that space, but also create the outcomes you want to achieve. That duality of it. Because if I help you get confidence, but in a direction that's not what you want, it's pointless. Like, I feel good, but like, I really want to do that. No, I don't, it doesn't line up. So for me, it's about the things that actually get you there. What it is actions. It's the actions, man. And if the actions are going to get you that money, that time, that freedom, that joy, that house, you have to get you to take the actions and eventually become the person who takes them. Not one time, but it's just who you are. And then over time, it's kind of like I say capacity, because in the beginning, it is hard. It doesn't feel like it's you. It feels like just honestly, all your energy is being drained. But after a while, it becomes effortless effort. That thing that you couldn't do years ago, it's like, it's like weights in the weight room. You walk in, like, that weight's heavy. 5 pounds is heavy. I can't touch it. I can't lift it, right? But you don't leave the weight room and come back and go, maybe I'll be stronger now. I came back and left. No, you had to be in the weight room, but you stay in the weight room, you keep lifting smaller weights and build up. And eventually that weight that you couldn't pick up, it's your warm up. Your capacity has increased. Same for life. The things you're struggling with now that feel heavy for life and they're difficult, we're just trying to find ways to distract ourselves and scroll on social media and go party and hang out. But we still know that thing stays there. I can't move past it. But when I step in and go, let me figure out how to lift the weight of life here. Well, now that thing becomes easy and you're 7 levels above. And it's like, yeah, I did that Tuesday morning. It's no big deal. And that is the reason why certain people have all the success you see.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the individuals, because people matter when it comes to our success journey. How do we navigate these relationships as we're evolving into this, like you say, person who's developing the character they need to see success? How do we handle the relationships that might not necessarily go with us or go the same way?
Yeah, you just navigate them, and you realize that you have to have some conversations. I look at this like a business conversation, to be honest. Like I look at it like we are, these businesses have dreams and aspirations. Nike's goal is to sell a bunch of shoes. NBC's to get a bunch of viewership. It's a goal, right? There's a bigger picture goal for that company, and each person as part of the company has a different role, right? Someone might be the videographer, the editor, the producer, the talent. There's different people for the TV, and then if you're going to be shoes, I got to design shoes and make the shoes and ship the shoes. All these different things, right? But there's different roles, but they all come together to help the business get where it wants to go. If I see myself as a CEO of my business, the people that are around my life are like the employees, the associates, right? They have different jobs and roles. My best friend has a role. My wife has a role. My kids have a role. They're part of the board. I have personal trainers, we'll call it, colleagues, whatever it may be, part of my business team. They have roles. And if for some reason someone's not doing their job, I have to let them know or let them go, right? So I may sit down with you and go, hey, look, my best friend, and I love you, but to be quite honest, man, you've been in this situation where I feel like every time I tell you something, it becomes like this negative direction. And I don't feel like I'm getting the support. And I love you, but here's where I'm going with my business, my life. And I'd love you to be there. So I'm having this conversation. But if you don't want to, like, I get that, but just do know that I'm not going to spend time having you around, and eventually we'll just be moving in a different direction. And so you've given this person the opportunity to know where you're going, what you expect of them. And if they don't want to do it, that's on them. It's less of you removing them, more of them removing themselves from discomfort of not doing the job or not being able to be prepared for the next level. And if they don't do it, somebody's going to cut them off. Like, hey, you know what? I can't hang out with you no more. And then you cut it off. But the idea is you got to get rid of people. But here's the crazy thing. Whereas humans, we're tribe humans. We like people around us. And as we look at the people around us, we are more deathly afraid of being alone than being with the wrong people. We'll be with the wrong people all day because we feel like we're part of something, as opposed to being alone. I'm scared. So human beings are not apt to leave their crappy circles because they don't have a positive one to go to. There's just as much fear around being alone or entering a higher circle feeling inadequate. So we stay stuck in this little small circle and we don't do much. So there's a lot we have to realize is like, you can't create room for higher level humans if it's taken up by lower level humans in your life. So for me, I go, it's not going to be as crazy as you think, but you have to step out and be okay with being solo for a little bit. You have what you need. There are people that will support you, right? You'll have humans around, but then that gives you space to go seek the higher level humans to elevate you to a bigger place in life, a higher circle, better, space. And those individuals, that tier, they're going to celebrate you, lift you up. They're going to be in the place that you wanted that person to be, above and beyond what you can imagine.
You talk about in order to be or have a better life, you have to make shifts in your identity. Give us 3, I guess, essential steps in making that shift.
Yeah. So there's 3. It's called the shift method. See, shift, sustain. And it's honestly straightforward, but it's not at the same time. There's depth. So all the things we're talking about, for me, people go, okay, it sounds great. How do I make shift happen? Well, first you have to actually go through the process of knowing what you want to do. For us, we work with like a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs, and I call it hustle harmony, right? It's this idea that I want to have this harmony in my hustle for work, my relationship, my health, all these things. It doesn't mean just having balance. I don't think it exists, but harmony. So they're all moving at peak pace. So I'm making great money and I have the system in place and I have peace of mind and I have joy, right? But nothing's outside of my life. Like I'm not starving my marriage. I'm not starving my kids' relationships. That's the goal, right? And so I'm like, well, what's the process to get there? And that's going to be that identity shift. But I like to look at it as expanding capacity. How do I expand my capacity to get to the point of that stuff happens and it's fluid and it's moving smooth? And for me, there's 3 stages. It's see, shift, sustain. The C stage is we have to see the areas that are either as a constraining or an expanding space in your area. So if you have constraining things going on in your life, you don't see them, you can't work on them, you can't shift anything. So we go through a process to first see the constraints. What is keeping you stuck? Is it your people? Is it your processes? Is it your mentality? Is it your mindset? Is it your habits, the big actions? What's going on here? Beliefs, thoughts, it's little weird things. Once I see it, I can then craft a bigger vision that you can see to go towards. Now we go, great. What do I do, right? You shift. Now, most people jump to the shift stage because it's the work we start doing. And they jump here, but then they start doing the wrong work because they didn't see first. So I get all this energy out, investments out, and I'm burned out and I feel crappy inside and I feel like a waste of time. Yeah, because you didn't see first. But if you did that right, you come here. Well, now we start making these shifts. And you start taking a look at, shifting perspectives and groups and actions and habits, right? And you do the right ones. So you get a return to it. And then we get to this point where people are met with a moment and they go, oh, I don't know if I could handle this success or if I could do this, right? That receive and sustain. And that's where the last piece is sustain. How do I create a disciplined system to make sure this plan I put in place is adhered to over time? So if I just put a plan in place and take an action on it one time, I will have that up and down. I'll actually create more of a guilt inside for not maintaining or falling short when I saw what could have been the thing. And I tucked back, right? So the idea is, how do you sustain it? And that discipline system is key. Most people don't have it. They have emotions, they have thoughts and plans, but they do it for a short amount of time until it gets uncomfortable and we tuck away. Almost instinctually, we'll make excuses, we'll refute things, it's not who I am. But my thing is, no, you have to create something around it to where that is who you are to do that. You don't stay motivated, you stay disciplined. And that's a system. It's a system of how I run my life, how I make adjustments, how I tweak, how I stay consistent, how I stay accountable. And so in what we do, we build this for people so that we give you this actual skill set that you could implement at any time you want to expand on demand, not just when crap hits the fan.
Well said, well said. See, shift, sustain. Well, Anthony, I appreciate you joining me. Before I let you go, I got to get you to play this quick game with me. It's called My 5 Favorites. I'll give you 2 options, and you give me your favorite of the 2.
All right.
Hip hop or R&B?
R&B.
Family night or family game night or movie night?
Movie night.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill or How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie?
Think and Grow Rich.
Squats or lunges?
Lunges. Squats hurt my back now, bro. I'm old.
And last, the LA Rams or the Cincinnati Bengals?
The Oregon Ducks. I don't like NFL teams, man. I don't care. Most of those teams. I would go with Joe if I had to pick.
Oh, I got you.
I feel like LA wasn't a team that should have won, man. They don't even care about football out there, punks.
Right. But Anthony, I appreciate you joining me. Tell our listeners how they can learn more about you and find out about your courses and programs.
Yeah, if you go to @AnthonyTrucks on Instagram, you'll find me there. If you go to textanthony.com and put the word identity in, you actually get a free kind of course that gives you an idea of this identity stuff. It's an ideal identity development. So it's a quick little free course I give to give people this perspective of what is an ideal identity. How do I create one for myself?
Sounds good. Anthony, thanks so much.